good morning, everybody, and let me welcome you to FDNY firefighter Robert T. Beckwith street dedication. I want to thank the FDNY Emerald Society Pipes and Drums for opening today's program. Thank you all, and please thank you, the FDNY Ceremonial Unit Color Guard, for presentation of the colors. Next, I'd like to please welcome Brian Palazzo of the FDNY Engine 95 to sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much, Brian. I'd now like to welcome Councilman Laura Ryder to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Detail and salute.
Place your right hand over your heart and face our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless our first responders and veterans.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Ready to.
Thank you.
God of many peoples, we give you thanks for calling us together to rededicate this street to the honor of firefighter Robert T. Beckwith, a man who 23 years ago became for so many an American symbol of hope and unity. After quickly rushing to assist in the rescue efforts in the aftermath of September 11th. Bring light, Lord, to the heaviness of our hearts as we honor in this Baldwin community Robert's sacrifice. We ask you, Lord, to bring peace to Robert's sons, Joseph and Tommy, and to continue to carry in our hearts and prayers his family, his wife Barbara, daughter Christine, his sons Robert, Richard, and Stephen, as well as his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, friends, and fellow members of Ladder 164 in Douglaston. In his service to this great city, Bob has witnessed to us that the lives God has graced us with are not for our own sake, but rather are for others. May we honor him on this September morning by choosing to move from the minimum of what is needed by each of us to the maximum of what each of us is capable of being. So we thank you, Father of life, once again, for bringing us together today as a fire department family and as a community here. and for sharing with each of us your precious gifts of faith, hope, and charity. And may each of us grow through these gifts and use these gifts as Bob witnessed to us by being the best that he could be. Amen.
Thank you, Monsignor. Please, everyone have a seat if possible. I'd like to take the time to introduce some of the officials that have joined us here today. We have Deputy Supervisor Dorothy Gooseby. You've heard from Councilwoman Laura Ryder. Of course, Congressman Anthony D'Esposito has joined us. No stranger to anyone here, Congressman Peter King, former Congressman Peter King, that's still a congressman to me. We're joined by Assemblyman Brian Curran. Thank you very much, Assemblyman. We have Legislator Deborah Millay, and we also, Deborah, thank you, Legislator Patrick Mullaney, FDNY Lieutenant. Thank you very much for joining us. We are honored to have former FDNY Commissioner Thomas Van Essen. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Assistant Chief Joseph Ferrante. Thank you very much. Of course, we heard from the Monsignor. Thank you very much, Monsignor Felicione. Thank you very much. And Deputy Chief Martin Lundquist. We are also joined by UFA Queens Trustee Dennis Vetter. Thank you very much. We'd also like to thank the Baldwin and Point Lookout Fire Departments for providing the American flag arch. Thank you very, very much. You know, today is a very, very significant street dedication for our nation, as far as I'm concerned. And I had prepared remarks today to talk about Bob. But in the last 24 hours, I've received two communications that I think are significantly more important than anything I could contribute to today's ceremony. So, Barbara, if it's all right, I'd like to read the following to everybody here. Melania and I send our best wishes to those gathered for the street renaming ceremony in honor of firefighter Robert Beckwith of Ladder 117. During one of our darkest days and in our nation's history, a true American hero rose from the rubble of the fallen Twin Towers with a message to the entire world: don't mess with New York. Robert Beckwith represented the steel and strength of not only our incredible New York firefighters and first responders, but also the heart and determination of all Americans on September 11th, 2001. His image will be forever in our collective memories as a beacon of hope, a symbol of reassurance on that terrible day. We gathered strength from his calm and faithful presence, knowing that whatever happened over the next days and months, good would prevail over evil. Out of the smoke and the anguish of that faithful day emerged the extraordinary courage, conviction, and lifelong devotion of New York's bravest. Our nation will never forget their sacrifice or the servant leadership of Robert Beckwith. His legacy will be carried by future generations of his beloved children, his grandchildren, who will tell the extraordinary American story of the fateful day Robert Beckwith stepped out of retirement and into the history books for his selfless service to our great country. May God be with all of you today, and may he bless the Beckwith family, the great state of New York, and the United States of America. Sincerely, Donald J. Trump. And now for the other correspondence I received. Jill and I are honored to commemorate the renaming of a street in the town of Hempstead in recognition of a national hero, firefighter Bob Beckwith. We join with the people of Hempstead, the New York City Fire Department, and all those gathered today in celebration of this honor. Firefighters like Bob hold a special place in my heart. In times of crisis, the decision to risk everything to help others doesn't just define what responders do, it reveals who they are. In the aftermath of the terror attacks on September 11, 2001, Bob and his fellow firefighters embodied the extraordinary bravery of first responders, putting the safety of others before their own during one of America's darkest chapters. Bob's resilience inspired grieving Americans everywhere and reminded us that light and hope will always triumph over darkness and despair. On behalf of a grateful nation, I thank the Beckwith family and all of you first responders gathered to celebrate this commemoration today. I know that the town of Hempstead will cherish this special tribute to Bob's legacy, and I pray that all of you can find strength and healing in knowing that our country will never forget the memories of the souls who perished on September 11th, 2001. Joe Biden. Almost 23 years ago today, a sweetheart of a guy from Baldwin, New York, stepped on top of a hill with the most powerful man in the United States, let alone the world. And that image that was captured inspired a president and inspired a nation. It showed us no matter what religion, what race, what party affiliation, it embodied everything that is good about being an American. Bob brought us together that day. Bob brought a nation together that day. At a time of grieving, he brought us together as a country. And today, he's done it again. He's brought all of us together. He's brought leaders together to honor him. Our nation owes him a gratitude he deserves. This street dedication is just one. Bob will be forever remembered for decades to come, for our children, for our grandchildren, for our great children and beyond, about what he did that day in standing up there and unifying a country. So I say to the Beckwith family, thank you. Thank you for letting us honor him. Because that day, he served our country as a whole. And our country rightfully takes the time to recognize him for everything he did to bring us together like he always has, like he has today. So I say God bless this wonderful family. God bless all of our first responders. God bless the United States of America. And thank you all for joining us here today for this dedication. I now have the honor of introducing Thomas Von Essen, who was the FDNY Commissioner on September 11, 2001.
Thank you. When Supervisor Clavin called me and asked me if I'd say a few words here today, I was honored and I told him I'd be happy to. I went back a long way with Bob in my union days, him as a delegate, me and involved on the board, and I always knew he was a super guy. When I was there on September 11th, I had lost track of him for a while. But when I looked over and I saw him there on September 11th, I thought, oh, a lot of the old guys are coming down. They're going to help out. And it was amazing to me as the time went by how many thousands of volunteers we had and how important the former firefighters were in that large group. Many of the volunteers were not the people we needed. There were people who were too old, too young. People had no experience, and we did not want to have anyone else get hurt or lose another one, God forbid. But when I saw people like Bob, it made me feel good. And I was standing next to the president, and I saw the Secret Service trying to find somebody who would go up on top of that crushed rig to see if it was safe. And when they asked Bob to do it, and I saw he jumped up there, I was really glad, coming from the fire department and knowing who could have been asked to jump up on that rig. I was very, very happy to see somebody like Bob, somebody who we were all proud of, somebody who had a history of acting the right way, in a proud way, in a compassionate way, in a dignified way, for all the firefighters and for all the people that were watching this historic moment. When he tried to get down, President Bush wouldn't let him go, and the rest is history. Bob became a symbol for all the volunteers and retired people who came to help us those next months that went on. It was it was so many volunteers, we couldn't control it. We had to secure the area and stop many of them from coming in. But people like Bob, people that knew what needed to be done, people who cared like he did, they were the most valuable participant we could get at that time. I went back there the night of September 11th and I saw the volunteers coming, welders and steel workers, and people did not have contracts, they did not have agreements, they weren't getting paid. They just kept coming and coming to help and to make a difference. We had retired mechanics that came back, drove back all across the country to help us with repair our rigs. So Bob became a symbol for us of what we needed and what we needed to help us stay together and to go forward. And what the guys have endured these 23 years, many of them, it's tough. It's tough to talk about and think about it, especially this time of year. But I want to thank Supervisor Clavin and the community and everybody for honoring Bob in a well-deserved way. And Barbara, it's an honor to have been his friend, and thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I now have the pleasure of introducing Congressman Anthony D'Esposito.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. And to the Beckwith family, thank you for the honor that you've given all of us to show compassion and love and thanks to a true American hero. And the Monsignor mentioned in his opening prayer that Bob Beckwith stood on the top of that rubble with President Bush and became a sign of hope and unity all across the United States of America. But I think what's most important, and one of the things that is clear about today, is that Bob Beckwith didn't become a sign of hope and unity just on September 11th. Look at the family and the loved ones and the people who had the honor of working with him and calling him a friend. He was a sign of hope and unity long before September 11th, 2001. But when our world, when our country needed it most, Bob stood upon that rubble with President Bush, and President Bush delivered some pretty simple words. He said over and over, "We hear you. We hear you. The world hears you." And the world did hear, and the world saw. And what the world saw that day was a gentleman from right here in Baldwin who cared about his family, cared about his friends, would do anything for his coworkers, a man who loved the state of New York and the city fire department and loved the United States of America. And what Bob Beckwith did on that pile is he took a snapshot in time on one of the darkest days in American history. And you see, when you look at that photo, there's no religion, there's no skin color, there's no politics. The only thing that you see in that photo is patriotism, is rooting for the United States of America. And that's exactly what this country needed at that time. They needed someone to look at, to root for, to say, you know what? That could be me. People throughout the city of New York that were riding in patrol cars, hopping on rigs to go dig for their brothers and sisters. Those who were down on Wall Street looking for their loved ones. They needed to look at someone real that they could connect with. And that was Bob Beckwith. Without even knowing, he provided hope, he provided unity, he provided patriotism, and he provided love of country. The only colors that people saw were red, white, and blue. So ladies and gentlemen, today we rename this street. And we renamed this street so that from decades from now, young children will be walking down it, look up, and ask who was Bob Beckwith. And boy, do they have a story to read. So to the Beckwith family, God bless you all. To everyone here who came to recognize Bob, thank you. And to all those who still wear the uniform and defend us each and every day, God bless you, stay safe, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Congressman. And now I'd like to welcome up former Congressman Pete King.
Thank you, Supervisor Clavin, Commissioner Von Essen, Congressman Esposito, Barbara, the entire Beckwith family. There's so many of them. My God, they're everywhere. Great people, great family, and Bob was a great guy. First, let me just say, County Executive Blakeman called me this morning. He intended to be here. He couldn't make it. He wants to extend his great regard for Bob and certainly supported this street renaming. And also, he always comments on the fact that his a nephew was killed on 9/11. So he shares his love and appreciation for all those who put their lives on the line that day, during, and after. So again, from the County Executive, I send his sincerest thanks and congratulations to the Beckwith family. Also, I was in contact with President Bush's office. As you know, President Bush, this wasn't a one-day stand between him and Bob Beckwith. They stayed in contact for years. In fact, right up to Bob's final days. So anyway, President Bush gave me a long statement. I'll just read the last 3 lines. Bob Beckwith's courage represented the defiant, resilient spirit of New Yorkers and Americans after 9/11. I was proud to have Bob by my side at Ground Zero days later and privileged to stay in touch with this patriot over the years. Laura and I will always remember this decent, humble man, and we give our sincerest gratitude to Barbara and the entire Beckwith family. That's from President George W. Bush. And I can tell you until, it's okay, you can go ahead. There's almost never a time I would talk to President Bush, how's Bob Beckwith doing? How's he doing? How's Bob doing? How's Beck doing? So again, they really formed a real friendship and relationship which went beyond a photo op. And speaking of photo ops, the only real grievance I have with Bob Beckwith, he used to campaign with me. And I'd be standing outside a supermarket waiting for all the people to come and tell me how great I am. They walk right past me, and all I wanted to do was say hello to Bob Beckwith. Could they have a photo with Bob Beckwith? I'm saying, I'm the congressman, come on out. We can see you anytime. They couldn't believe they're actually seeing Bob Beckwith in person. But again, if you saw him, he has no idea why. He never fully understood or appreciated why so many Americans held him in such high regard, because that's the way he was. All he was doing that day is what he always did. And unfortunately, most of us don't do every day what Bob Beckwith always did. Just a true patriot. I was there on, I guess that was September 14th, when President Bush was there with Bob, and that really was the turning point in that war. Until then, we were down, we were depressed, we were devastated, we were defeated, and from that moment forward, America fought back. So, to me, there's no way we can truly acknowledge the greatness of Bob Beckwith, but the street renaming certainly is a vital step forward. I was proud to know Bob, proud to know Barbara. God bless Bob Beckwith, and God bless America. Yeah.
Thank you, Congressman King. And now I have the pleasure of introducing a very, very fine young man, Matthew Beckwith. He's the grandson of Bob, and he's a very special young man. I'd like to ask Matt to come on up. Matt.
First, I would like to begin by thanking Billy Butler for setting this all up alongside the FDNY Foundation and the town of Hempstead. Thank you all for being here today to honor my grandfather, Bob Beckwith. To many of you, he's a symbol of heroism, a firefighter who stood tall during one of the most difficult moments in our nation's history. But to me, he was simply Grandpa. Growing up, I didn't fully grasp the magnitude of what he did on 9/11. To me, he was the man with the witty one-liners that always made me laugh, the man who kept a cool head amid chaos, the man who would drop everything to help if someone needed. He never spoke much about his bravery or the things he witnessed as a firefighter. He lived quietly, with humility and strength, never seeking recognitions for his actions. But as I got older, I began to understand just how much he gave, not only to us as a family, but to his community and to his country. When he stood at ground zero beside President Bush, he wasn't just representing the firefighters and first responders who rushed into those burning towers. He was representing all of us. He embodied strength, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to helping others, even in the darkest of times. My grandfather taught me that being brave isn't about running into danger. It's about being there for people when they need you the most. That's the legacy I carry with me today. Though he may be gone, his spirit lives on in all of us, and I am incredibly proud to be his grandson, and even more proud to be a Beckwith. Thank you all.
I want to thank all of our speakers here today. In particular, I want to thank Matt. You did a wonderful job, and your grandfather was proud of you and is looking down and is very, very proud of you. All right, everyone's going to look forward on three. We're going to pull it. 1,